Hello guys, welcome back in Goku Manhwa channel. Let's continue. In a busy corporate building, a woman sat at her desk when she noticed Ch-1 walking by. She greeted her with an awkward mix of surprise and familiarity, realizing how long it had been since they last spoke. Ch-1 was a 29-year-old office worker, ordinary in most ways, working as a web designer at an adult magazine company. After 3 years of steady, consistent service, she had finally earned the rare chance for a rejuvenation vacation. Someone from the next cabin leaned over and mentioned that she had heard about Ch-1 taking a break. She asked whether Ch-1 had any plans for the vacation and wondered if she was taking a trip somewhere. Ch-1 explained that it was nothing extravagant. She intended to go on a quiet healing trip to an orchard owned by someone she knew. In her mind, she thought about Aunt Meija's orchard, remembering it as a peaceful place. The coworker reacted with disbelief. The idea of spending a rejuvenation vacation in an orchard felt too plain to her. She reminded Ch-1 that Ibiza had been one of the options she could have chosen. Ibiza seemed like the opposite of an orchard: wild, loud, filled with people who partied without restraint. For someone like Ch-1, who had never dated and was known for her straight-laced personality, Ibiza felt far beyond her comfort zone. Her coworker found it amusing that Ch-1 had chosen between such extremes: the calmness of an orchard and the intensity of Ibiza. She teased Ch-1 by imagining a dramatic romantic scene, comparing it to a man in a sunflower field, the kind of fantasy often found in glossy magazine spreads. She wondered aloud if Ch-1 might run into some tanned, muscular young chairman running the orchard, someone with perfectly shaped abs and a charming smile. Ch-1 admitted that she wouldn't mind if something like that happened. Her coworker laughed again, always entertained by how someone who clearly liked men so much had never been in a relationship. Ch-1's thoughts drifted for a moment. She recalled that the second son of the Orchard family had been around her age. She wondered how he was doing now. When they were children, he had been a small, snot-nosed boy who followed her everywhere, always trailing behind her. A brief memory flashed of the two of them as kids, her leading, him running after her. The scene shifted to the present as Ch-1 arrived with a suitcase in front of a modest green-doored house. She hesitated, thinking to herself that the boy she once knew shouldn't be here anymore since the whole family had moved to the city long ago. Still, she stepped forward and greeted the home warmly. She called out to Aunt Meija, announcing that she had arrived. As Ch-1 stood at the green door, she began introducing herself. She started to say her name, but her voice stopped halfway. Someone was standing a few steps away inside the yard, a man, half-naked, with droplets of water still sliding down his torso as if he had just washed up or come from working in the heat. Her words paused, and she finished her introduction softly, feeling her voice lose confidence. She completed her name as her eyes met his. They held eye contact for a moment that stretched longer than she expected. The man looked at her with a brief, almost startled shyness, as if he had not expected anyone to be standing there. In her mind, she wondered if she was mistaken. He didn't look anything like the Dongwook oppa she remembered from childhood. The thought slipped through her mind: could this really be him? Before she could make sense of it, someone appeared at the doorway. Aunt Meija stepped out, cheerful and welcoming, calling out to Ch-1 and urging her to come inside quickly. That rushed warmth snapped Ch-1 out of her confusion. She answered obediently, though her eyes kept drifting toward the man. She tried asking him if he was Jungwook, wanting to confirm what her mind was refusing to settle on. The man tilted his head away from her, deliberately looking in the opposite direction, dismissing her without a word. His reaction hit her unexpectedly, and frustration flickered across her expression. Internally, she muttered that she felt exactly the same irritation toward him. She gathered herself and moved toward the door as Meija called her again. She answered, stepping inside while feeling her face warm with embarrassment. She couldn't ignore the small jolt in her chest caused by seeing him half-naked. His body was nothing like the boy she remembered: solid, well-built, the kind that made her unexpectedly conscious of herself. Later that evening, as they settled into the house, Aunt Meija looked at her with a fond, almost nostalgic expression. She commented on how much Ch-1 had grown, as if the years since childhood had suddenly collapsed into this single moment. The day ended with Ch-1 still unsettled. The man she remembered as a small, clingy boy had become someone who looked at her with unfamiliar eyes, and someone whose presence already made her heart beat harder than she expected. Aunt Meija's husband stepped forward with a warm, familiar smile. Ch-1 greeted him politely, calling him Uncle Pilsing and asking if he had been well. He responded with genuine warmth, saying it was wonderful to see her after 10 long years. She returned the sentiment, feeling a mix of comfort and nostalgia as she stood between the two adults who had known her since childhood. Aunt Meija opened the door to the guest room and ushered her in with gentle concern, noticing how far she had traveled. She told Ch-1 she must be tired from the long trip and encouraged her to make herself comfortable. The room was simple and welcoming, filled with a quiet rural charm that contrasted sharply with the crowded city she had come from. Ch-1 thanked her and stepped inside, closing the door softly behind her. Once alone, she let out a small breath of relief. She glanced around the room and muttered to herself that even though she had only left Seoul, it already felt different. It didn't quite feel like a vacation yet, but it felt peaceful in a way she had missed. A faint smile appeared on her face as she looked out at the orchard through the small window. She opened her suitcase and began unpacking slowly, letting the warmth of the room settle around her. Seeing Aunt Meija and Uncle Pilsing again brought back a comforting sense of familiarity. She realized coming here had been a truly good choice. As she took out her clothes and neatly placed them on the bed, her excitement grew. She told herself she was going to receive the ultimate healing, letting her body and mind rest so she could return to the city completely refreshed. While unpacking, she reached for a small pouch. Her expression shifted when she remembered what was inside. It was the gift her team leader had given her before she left. She opened the pouch and let out a tiny, amused sigh. Her team leader had always been mischievous, and this gift reflected that perfectly. Inside was a toy meant for private pleasure, something she hadn't expected but had brought along anyway. She stared at it for a moment, half embarrassed, half amused. In her mind, she admitted that bringing something like this on a vacation wasn't exactly normal. Before she could put it away, an image of the man from earlier flashed through her thoughts, the one she had seen half-naked in the yard. The sudden overlap of thoughts made her cheeks warm, and she quickly tucked the toy back into the pouch, caught between amusement and flustered confusion. Just as Ch-1 was still holding the pouch with the toy inside, the man she had seen earlier suddenly appeared at her doorway. The moment she looked up, she froze. He looked at her, then at her hand, and his eyes lingered for just a beat too long. She realized he had noticed exactly what she was holding. He seemed hesitant to look directly at her, avoiding eye contact as if he wasn't sure how to react. He passed on a message from his mother, explaining that a bath had been prepared for her. She responded quickly, trying to acknowledge him while struggling to hide the toy. But when she lowered her hand, she realized it was still fully visible. Embarrassment swept over her so strongly that she let out a startled, shy yell. Flustered beyond belief, she rushed toward the bathroom, almost tripping over her own feet in panic. Once inside, she locked the door and pressed her hands to her face. She kept repeating the same frantic question to herself, wondering what she was supposed to do now. Her embarrassment was so overwhelming that it made her mutter helplessly for help, though there was no one to hear her. She couldn't stop replaying the moment. Of all people, why did he have to walk in right then? Why did she have to get caught holding something so private by Jungwook, especially after meeting him again for the first time in a decade? But then she reasoned that it was still better than being caught by Aunt Meija or Uncle Pilsing. To cover it up, she had already told them she had seen a bug near her luggage. She felt ridiculous for being someone who couldn't even say a proper greeting while holding a dildo. Her thoughts drifted back to Jungwook. The shock of seeing him half-naked earlier was still vivid. His fair skin, broad shoulders, and firm build stood out clearly in her mind. His muscles looked sturdy, probably from working in the orchard. She found herself admitting he had grown into a genuinely handsome man with the kind of dream physique she never expected him to have. As she remembered that, her mind wandered for a moment, imagining the shape of his body again, and a warm pulse of embarrassment ran through her. From the other side of the door, she heard his name being called, her voice accidentally slipping out as she tried to calm herself. He misunderstood it and assumed she was asking for a towel. In his mind, he thought he should bring one to her. Much later that night, after calming down, she came out of her room rubbing her eyes, looking groggy from a nap she drifted into after relieving her stress and having a hearty dinner. She wandered toward the kitchen and opened the fridge to get some water. The house was quiet except for the heavy sound of Uncle Pilsing snoring in the distance. But beneath that, she heard something else. A faint sound came from the upper floor. Curiosity pulled her forward. She walked to the base of the stairs, listening more closely. It sounded like it was coming from Jungwook's room. Her first thought was that he might be sick. She climbed the stairs slowly and reached his door. The sound was clearer now. With concern outweighing her hesitation, She pushed the door open just enough to peek inside. What she saw made her stop breathing. She froze completely. Jungwook was in the middle of something intimate, something she had not expected to see at all. At that exact moment, he turned his head, and their eyes met.